Good morning and welcome to Torwood Garden Centre. I'm going to do a wee seed sowing video this morning to give you some information on sowing seeds in your own house or in a greenhouse if you're lucky enough to have one. Now is a great time to do this. A lot of seeds are germinating now in the garden, so likewise if you're planting flowers for this spring or vegetables for spring into summer and into autumn even, then now can be a great time to get them in the ground if you don't have too much frost. So that's where a greenhouse comes in handy. It just makes it that little bit warmer. You can also use a windowsill if you're planting things like tomatoes, peppers that are a little less hardy, and you can use a grow house, which I'll show you in a wee minute, but that's a good kind of option for if you've not got an awful lot of space and you just want somewhere slightly warmer than the outside temperature to plant your seeds. So where do you start? Well, I guess you buy some seeds first, and I've got a wee selection here. So we've got seeds at the garden centre starting from a couple of pounds for as many as 100 seeds. So it's a very cost effective way to grow in the garden. Here I've got marigolds, for example, £2.80 there for 50. They're for 50 plants. So if you think if you were buying marigolds come the spring, they might be, a tray of 6 might be £3-4. So you're doing really well to get all those plants for £2.80, and they will they'll grow in your greenhouse, and away you go. And it's a bit of an extra experience to grow in them, good thing to do with the kids or just for yourself. A wee bit of a sense of achievement growing your own bedding plants. That's the flowering one. As I said, we've also got vegetables here. So I've got a pack of peas, I've got some onions, and I've got some potatoes to show you in a wee minute. But yeah, huge selection of different vegetables that you can grow. Vegetables tend to be the most common things grown from seed, because people like to see things go right the way through. You know that it's fully organic if that's the way you choose to garden, and there's a real sense of achievement of eating something that you've grown, and it does genuinely taste better as well. So that's where you start. You buy your seeds. It might not be that you're buying seeds. You can buy things like seed potatoes. So these potatoes are a little bit further along. They look like a potato you might buy in the shop, but they're a seed potato, so slightly smaller, and they're going to produce other potatoes. So you put that in the soil, and by the end of spring, you'll have maybe 6, 7, 8 potatoes off the one. So they kind of sprout out and create a big crop from a handful of wee potatoes put into the ground. And you can buy them by variety. The bags are nice and self-explanatory. They tell you if it's good for roasting, for chipping, for mashing, for baking, or indeed for salads, if you like to make a salad during a barbecue, and likewise. As well as that, we've got a lot of summer flowering bulbs, so things like your begonias. I've got a begonia here. So begonia corms are not hardy, and they don't last year to year in the UK. They come from tropical climates. So you can plant begonia corms now in a warmer environment like a greenhouse that's heated, or on a windowsill, to get a really nice big plant by spring. We also have lilies and I'm drawing a blank, but there's a huge range of summer bulbs, gladioli and things like that you can plant now. So whereas we're seeing all the daffodils and tulips that we would sell in the autumn now coming to flower, this is everything that will now flower in the summer that you plant now. So you get them in the ground now, and again, cost effective way to do it. You can get a bag of bulbs for the same price that you might pay for a plant later in the summer, but you plant them now and you grow them on yourself. Yeah, so that's what you would be buying. Apologies. So that's what you're buying to start off with. So pick a selection of seeds, look for something that you like eating yourself or that you usually buy in the summer or spring, and that's a good starting point. You can look for something a bit more unusual, particularly in the flowering plants. We carry a range of maybe 10,000 plants throughout the year, but that doesn't even touch the surface of what is available from a seed perspective. We've got 800 varieties of seeds right now in the garden centre, for some unusual varieties, things that potentially don't overwinter very well in the UK, so it might be you're growing it as an annual. So yeah, conservatory plants, things like that, you can grow from seed. You get a nice selection there, and they're in an A to Z format, so nice and easy to find the right ones. The packs have information on the front, particularly with the vegetables, about sowing and harvesting, so when you're going to harvest them. With the flowers, it tells you when to sow them, what the flowers are like, and whether it's a hardy or an annual plant that you're growing. Right, on to planting. So, there's a couple of different options. These black plastic trays have always been the kind of classic. However, they're not particularly easy to recycle. The local council will not recycle black plastic. So we've got other things that you can use now. These do have their place. You know, they last year to year to year. You can use them for decades in some places. This one here is particularly is a seeds tray, so it's got holes in the bottom, so it lets the water through. Or you can get ones that don't have holes, so they keep the water in if you're planting something that you want to keep wet. Usually the seeds you don't want them sitting in water, so these are quite handy, particularly if you've got a greenhouse where it doesn't matter if the water falls through. If, however, you're growing on a windowsill, you might not want that water all over your living room. So this one here, it's a pack. It comes, you get 2 lots of trays, so 24 cells in total, and each one comes in 3 parts. So what you get is you get your seed tray. That's what you plant into. Little holes in the bottom of that one. You've got a tray for water, so that sits inside there, holds the water, doesn't let it drip onto your windowsill. And then you've got a little bit to put on top that just keeps the environment inside a little bit warmer, but mostly it keeps it humid. So there's nice moisture content, allows the seeds to grow to their full potential, and then you can plant them out whenever they come to a little bit bigger. So this one here has 12 cells, each. Got 24 for the 2 of them. Just move them into the side. And they actually slide quite nicely right into one of these trays. Now that's often the case. If you didn't have the waterproof bit at the bottom, you can slide them into another tray. These are made with recycled plastic as well. The green stuff in particular is made from plastic bottles, but it's made from recycled plastic, 100% recycled, and you can recycle it again at the end if you want to, or use it year to year. And that's the main thing, isn't it? We don't want to use as much plastic, but these are the kind of items that you can use year to year. You just have to give them a good clean after they're finished with them, empty all the soil out, and away you can go next season. If you're looking for something that's going to go straight into the garden, so with these, what you're going to have to do is pop the plants out and put them out into the garden or into pots, containers, or wherever you're going to plant them to grow them to their full potential. They're not seeds where you can keep the soil a good temperature, good moisture level, but then eventually if you're going to put them out in the garden, you need to take them out. Now that's not a problem, they're made to be pinched so that the seeds come out. However, one of the things that we do recommend are these kind of coconut fibre or fibre pots. So how they work is they are made with fibre that breaks down in the soil. So it's a natural product, it breaks down in the soil, it works itself as compost essentially, just a little bit harder. It's been formed into a wee pot, so you plant your plant into there, or seed, let it go away, and then rather than having to take it out of there and potentially damaging the roots, you do need to be careful. You can just put that straight into the soil, out in the garden, and the roots will grow through that pot and out into the surrounding soil. A really good idea for like tomatoes, things like that you want to be nice and gentle with. They're quite delicate little seedlings. So yeah, we've got packs of them. These little square ones, you get 20 in a pack, so that's quite a good way to do it. You can set these into a gravel tray like I showed you before. That would be the best way to use those, and then keep them inside or in a greenhouse, grow house, and then away you go later on. It is worth noting, some things you can get a little bit further on. So, you know, the garden centre we sell a variety of things like onions are a good example. So we'll sell onion plants in the spring. We'll sell onion sets, which we have right now. So this is small onion plants, again like the seed potatoes, have been grown particularly to get a good crop out of them. Now, onions are quite slow growing, that's the reason that we generally sell onions, shallots as a kind of a halfway along the spectrum kind of thing. You can also buy onions by seed. So these red onions here, it says to sow January to April, so we're kind of in the middle of that period. I would always kind of err a little bit later in Scotland. You know, a lot of these things are just done for the UK in general, whereas we're a little bit colder here, so you know, we're a good time for planting red onions, and yeah, you'll get a harvest, a crop out of that in August, September. So it might seem like a bit of a long haul for you, but it is a really good way to grow onions that are very strong, or if you don't necessarily like them very strong, very sweet, or whatever else the variety of onion is. But you know, a lot stronger than the ones in the shops, if you like. So I'm going to do a wee demonstration, show you how to plant a couple of these, and yeah, we'll go from there. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them on the chat below or come in store, ask us. You know, it might be a bit daunting looking at 800 seeds and thinking what do I want to do, but they all have the time of year you can plant them, so why not start with something nice and easy. The easiest one to start with is lettuce, for example. If you're sowing lettuce, if you keep it warm enough, you can sow it all the way around the year. So you can have one crop going in just now, and in a week's time put a little bit more seed down, and that way you're going to have something to harvest in 3 weeks and something to harvest in 4 weeks. So you can constantly be getting a crop off that right throughout the year, and it's a great way to get vegetables into your house, and also it probably saves you a bit of money versus buying lettuces in the shops. So, we'll go with the wee tray first. As I say, we start off with the bit we're holding, so we're going to plant into that. So I've got compost here. Now this compost here is John Innes number 1. You do get seed sowing compost, but it just depends on how fine your seeds are. Things like carrots, for example, if you want nice straight carrots, you want to use a nice sandy soil, so you can mix a bit of sand in or use a nice fine seed compost. I wouldn't generally use a multi-purpose, although it is multi-purpose, so it does everything. When it comes to seeds, they are a little bit more tender than further on plants, so we would recommend a seed sowing compost or something like that. When you look into this compost, I mean, compost these days, we're moving away from peat-based compost towards more sustainable solutions, so there is a little bit of bark or woody material in this. Unfortunately, that's just going to be the way going forward. The compost is going to be a bit more varied. Peat has been a great substance for growing in, but it's not sustainable to dig up peat bogs, so we're moving away from that, and the majority of compost we now sell is peat free. So yeah, you sometimes just need to give a wee sieve, or like I'm doing here, just breaking up some of the larger bumps. There is some gravel in that's in there deliberately to create a bit more drainage, to allow the water to run through the soil, so it's not a bad thing. Yeah, you just want to make sure it's nice and fine, so that when it goes into the pot I've got here, there's no huge chunks, and the wee seedlings are going to be able to push their roots around it. You know, obviously in the garden they'll have to push their roots around things anyway, but just when they're young, it's a good idea. You want to get nice strong roots, so just give it a wee bit of a spread over. If you find any lumps like that, just make sure you're breaking them up. If there's any that are really tough, we'll just put them over to the side. They're perfectly good for using it in the garden, but not so much for wee seeds. So, we'll give that a wee shake. Now, we don't want it to be all the way to the top, because we're going to be popping some seeds into there and then putting a wee bit layer on top. So, that's about right. So, we're not quite over the top, but we're making a good layer on top there. So, what are we going to grow? Well, one thing that I had picked out that I liked the look of was, if I can find it, some spring onions. So spring onions are a nice easy crop to grow. Same here, February to September, so we can start to plant now. It's late September here, although by the time the video goes up, probably March. But yeah, you can plant them just now. In this pack, we've got about 350 seeds. So with seeds, if you get 10, 20, you can put 1 or 2 in each pot. If you put 2 in with things like tomatoes, what you do is you then wait for them to grow and pick off the one that's the weakest of the 2. So you've always got the strongest seedling going on to the next stage. Be aware though, you will get very high germination with things like tomatoes, and I've done it before where I've planted 24 thinking I'll maybe get 3 or 4 tomatoes for a grow bag in the greenhouse, and you end up with 24 plants, so you've got far more than you possibly need, and the tendency then is to try and find more space for them, and then you've got not just 24 but 240 tomatoes by the time it comes to spring, and you've got a glut, you're making tomato soup to use them all up. So inside this pack, if I can open it without damaging it too much, because I'll maybe keep it for even another year, because the dates on these tend to be a couple of years. If you keep them dry, you can use the seeds year after year. Or as I suggested with the lettuce, because you can plant that and harvest it within 3 to 4 weeks, you can plant it successionally. So you're planting some one week, some the next week, the week again, and then harvesting it 3 weeks down the line, but you've got some to harvest every single week. So inside here, I've got a wee pack, so it's all kind of sealed within inside, and we are able to kind of keep that nice and dry, as I said, for next year potentially. So the 350 onion seeds is probably far more than I'm going to use, but I'll empty some of these out onto my hand. Now you'll be able to see they're very, very small. So they've been harvested, I don't know if you can see that, but just very, very small little dots. There's probably about 40 or 50 on my hand alone there. So you can, if you're doing it in a tray without cells, you can just sow them nice and generally or in rows so that you're getting plants coming through. Again, you're not going to, you'll take the strongest ones on to plant in the garden. Unless you've got unlimited space, you're probably not going to be able to take 350 spring onion plants. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick 3 of each of these, and I'm going to pop them into each cell. So 3 in each. I'll not do them all because it'll take me a while, but we'll do the first 3 for example. So the first 3. So put them into there. I'm just going to pop these seeds back into that wee thing there. So the top 3 cells have now got seeds in them. We're going to take a little bit of compost out of here, sprinkle it over the top, and tack that down. And you want it to be nice and firm at the top. just so that it's not to the waters, the soil's touching the seeds, and if the water's touching the seeds, you don't want too much air where they might dry out. So nice and firm for those three at the top. The level is just below the top. Again, don't have your level right to the top, because when you water them, all that's going to happen is the water will pour off the edge. You want a little bit of a divot so that the water runs and into the cells. And again, I'm going to be sitting them in a little tray. So what I'll do is, once they're all done, I'll put them into this little tray, give them a wee water over, let them soak for 5 minutes or so, and then I'll take this out, tip any excess water out of here, and put this back in, top on top, so that that's all creating a nice humid environment. And I'll pop that either on a windowsill or in a greenhouse, somewhere nice and kind of warm, but not too warm. You're not looking for somewhere right above a radiator or that. It'll dry out very quickly, albeit it'll be kept a bit more humid with the lid. But yeah, keep them watered. You don't want to be watering them too much, you don't want to be soaking wet. You just want to water them potentially once or twice a week, depends on how warm the room is really, and how much water you're losing, if you've got a lid or not a lid. And just keep keep an eye on the soil. Touch the top. Is it damp to the touch, or is it dry? That's really what you're judging it on. And as I said before, don't let them sit in water, so do make sure you tip that out afterwards. The same applies to most seedlings. Some might have specific instructions. The back of the packet will give you some instructions on how and where to, when to sow them. Some of them you can sow straight into the garden if you want to, particularly onions. Things like that actually are quite good for going straight in the garden. They're not particularly they're not particularly prone to frost. However, things like potatoes can be prone to frost, so I'll come to that in a wee second. But yeah, just keep an eye on which variety it is. Read the back of the pack, ask a member of staff, look it up on the RHS website. Our own website has a plant finder as well, where you can get information on every plant basically from an A to Z list. So nice and easy to use, and yeah, good to just kind of build up your own knowledge, and you get a feel for things as well. So sometimes it's a bit of trial and error. You plant some, put some on a windowsill, put some somewhere else, and see which do best, and then next year you've got that information yourself. Yeah, so I planted those ones up. The same would apply if I was using this wee pot. So possibly, yes, I've got some squash here. So squash, you might not be planting out yet because they're not particularly frost hardy, but I'll take that pack out. So I've got 10 seeds in here. So I know that I've got less than I had of the spring onions. You don't want to lose any of them, but again, there'll be in a wee packet inside here, get nice and dry and safe. So I should have 10 seeds. Now these will be bigger. I think squash seeds, from memory, I've not planted them in a few years, are similar size to pepper seeds, or they're even bigger. They're like pumpkin seeds, which I grew a couple of years ago. So you've got a nice size seed, so quite a big seed. So really what you want to do is plant 2 of them, end up like that, into these wee trays. Now I don't need as many as I've got, so I'll take 2 of them. So if I fill that little pot, just make sure again, no huge lumps, although the squash won't be overly bothered about them, but yeah, we pop them in. Now you want to pop them in, end up, and I'll put 2 in there. Now they're very likely that both will germinate, but it's just in case you get one that doesn't germinate. You pop that in, firm it down. Again, same applies. You don't want to have it right to the edge. You want to be able to drop a bit of water in there and it not run straight off the top. But that's now planted up. I've firmed it down enough so the water's going to be touching. This pot is actually going to get soaking. It will soak water up from below if you like. So with these, you can put them in a tray with a little bit of water. Don't let them get soaking wet because they might start to disintegrate. That's what they're meant to do in the soil, is disintegrate and become compost themselves. But yeah, keep them a little bit damp. You can water from the top, but not too heavily so that you're washing all the soil away. Just a little bit of water from the top, a little bit drop from the bottom. Keep it nice and damp. And again, same applies to the trays. Just keep them on a windowsill, or if you can, and it's something that says in the packet you can plant outside, then do so. Right. Last one I was going to do was, well actually there's 2 more. I was going to say about seeds, so flowering, so you've got things like marigolds, you can plant them. They tend to be easier to grow in a tray rather than growing in individual cells, so you would get a tray like the one I had here. If I can lift that out. But without holes in. And that would allow you to kind of sow straight into that. Again, don't let it get too wet, but if you put it on a windowsill, you don't want the water running through. You can use one of these sat on top of those, but yeah, you would just do a tray, fill it up with a layer of compost. Again, not too many bumpy bits, but that's good, nice fine compost. And then you would sprinkle the seeds over the top, a little bit more compost on top, tamp it down and water that. And that would be a good way for growing things like marigolds and things that you've got quite a few plants in that packet, so that would be the way it goes. Other things like delphiniums, they might be better off in these wee pots. They're going to grow right through the year, and you want to be able to put them straight out into the garden or into a pot, rather than growing in a tray. You can grow them in wee pots. That's 20 seeds you get for delphiniums. So there really is, there's a huge variety of things, from not just from annuals, things like marigolds, which sometimes biannual, but annuals, through to delphiniums and shrubs. Anything really can be grown from seed. I mean, essentially that's how plants reproduce. So we can use seed for a huge variety of flowering plants as well as vegetables. Other things I had in the vegetables, I had sweet corn, peas. Peas are quite a nice one for growing with kids, because you've got a little pea, you pop it in the ground and away they go. They're nice and easy to grow, and you can kind of harvest them, eat them straight from the plant, don't need cooked. I had things like radish, really nice for eating with your salad. Parsnips, so something we might eat in the autumn, but you plant it now, it's a bit slower growing. Carrots, lettuce, I said already about lettuce, so you can sow them straight from the packet into a tray, and you get lettuce leaves coming through. Depends on the type of lettuce. Some of the ones are like, that's a cause lettuce, so it's a small individual plant. Some of them you can grow and it will just be a quite small plants, so you can kind of grow them quite close together. Some of them they want a bit more space. And yeah, sweet corn I think I mentioned already. Cabbages and cauliflower, so huge variety. Everything you can think of that you can buy in the shops. You can variety of flowering plants as well as vegetables. Other things I had in the vegetables, I had sweet corn, peas. Peas are quite a nice one for growing with kids, because you've got a little pea, you pop it in the ground and away they go. They're nice and easy to grow, and you can kind of harvest them, eat them straight from the plant, don't need cooked. I had things like radish, really nice for eating with your salad. Parsnips, so something we might eat in the autumn, but you plant it now, it's a bit slower growing. Carrots, lettuce, I said already about lettuce, so you can sow them straight from the packet into a tray, and you get lettuce leaves coming through. Depends on the type of lettuce. Some of the ones are like, that's a cause lettuce, so it's a small individual plant. Some of them you can grow and it will just be a quite small plants, so you can kind of grow them quite close together. Some of them they want a bit more space. And yeah, sweet corn I think I mentioned already. Cabbages and cauliflower, so huge variety. Everything you can think of that you can buy in the shops, you can probably grow it in your greenhouse. We might have a bit of a shorter growing season here in the UK, so some things that grow all year round elsewhere won't grow as long, but certainly give things a shot, see if you can find it. With begonia corns, they're not quite the same as other bulbs. Where other things get planted into the soil, with begonias you plant them on top. They come from very tropical climates, so nice and warm, nice and humid, good quality, rich soil, and this little corm, as it was, it's not a bulb as such as a corm, sits on top of the soil. So it's like a little cup. If you imagine it like a little cup, it faces one way. So you want to make sure you point it with that way going up. This one here actually has a wee shoot coming off, this little pink thing coming off the top, so that's helping. It shows that's the way it's up. Some of them might not be shooting yet, and that's absolutely fine. You want them to be flowering come May, so really they don't need to be shooting yet, and you want to get some good roots on that so that it's feeding and keeping water into itself before it then starts to come into leaf, etc. But yeah, on top of the soil, nice and firm around about it, but they don't like to be too damp. They don't like to be rotting in the soil. They don't like to be frost. They don't like frost at all, or cold temperatures. So they have to be grown in a heated greenhouse or windowsill, somewhere warm. They can't go out in the garden just now. Although you can get away with that in May for begonias, you don't get away with it through the colder months. And there certainly is frost forecast for this weekend, so you need to keep an eye on that. But yeah, they don't need buried. Make sure the top is free from soil. That's where the shoots will come out. But soil are around the sides, so the roots will come out there, grow, and take in the nutrients. I was also going to mention potatoes. So I'm not going to plant my potatoes today. Now, we've had potatoes in store since January. They come in very early, as do the begonias and things. Yes, you can't plant them out in the garden yet. Potatoes are not frost hardy. But what you can do is you can start to chip potatoes. This might be a phrase you've heard before, but I'll show you how. So I'm not putting them in any soil. I want to keep them nice and dry. If I get them too wet, they'll start to grow and germinate and come on too quickly. And I'm not ready to put them in the garden until Easter earliest. And that really depends on the frost. If it's still frosty at Easter, I'll leave it on a week or two before I do that. Certainly at this time of year, if you go back, it's my birthday this week, and 3-4 years ago we had the beast from the east. That was this week. So if you think we're still getting cold temperatures, there's still the potential of really cold temperatures. So we don't want to put these potatoes in the garden yet. We want to grow them in the greenhouse. You might ask, well, why buy them now? Why not buy them in April? Come April, we'll not have any potatoes left. They're the kind of thing that go nice and early. You want to come in and check them and make sure you've got a nice firm potato. They're not gone soft, they're not rotted. You want one that's nice, firm, good to go, and has little shoots just starting to come. So it's a nice healthy crop. People tend to buy them early to get the best ones, and then they grow them on themselves in the house. As long as you keep them cool and dry, dark, they'll grow themselves in a month's time, 2 months' time. You don't need to worry too much about them shooting on too quickly. What you can use to help is things like an egg tray. It doesn't need to be an egg tray. It could be anything that keeps them nice, dry, and not touching wet surfaces or cold surfaces. So egg trays are good because they kind of got the divot, so you set them on top. They're only touching in a couple of places. Make sure you put the wee shoots on the upside. They'll just start to come on. If, like this one, I mean, it's not a great example, but sometimes they have shoots coming all the way around because they've been in a bag. The light is getting in to some extent, although they're shaded from all sides. So they'll start to shoot at all sides, thinking the sun's coming from all ways. What you do in that case is you just rub off the little shoots, so just like that. Doesn't harm the plant, just tells it basically that it's going to be growing that direction. So we set that in like that, and all the shoots will come up. In about a few weeks' time to a month, you'll have maybe 1 inch, 2 inch shoots coming off the top of that. So your potato plant is starting to grow. When you then put it out in the garden, it's already 2 weeks ahead of where it would be if you were just putting it out like that. So it then means that you've got a plant growing faster and you can get a crop off it quicker. Depending on what type of potatoes you grow, you get earlies, first earlies, second earlies. You get crops that come throughout the year. Like I was saying with lettuce, you want to phase them out because you don't want a glut of potatoes that you have to eat all at once. There's other ways around that, but yeah, basically if you grow them like this, you'll get a crop a little bit quicker, and then your next crop maybe a few weeks later, and so on and so forth, so that you can use them throughout the year for eating. If you grow them in a grow bag, I wouldn't recommend growing them in trays. They grow quite deep. If you grow them in a grow bag or in the soil is even easier. If you put them in a trench in the garden, then grow bags in particular, you can open at the bottom, pull a couple of potatoes out without damaging the roots too much, and put it back, close it again, and you get the same plant producing a crop for a longer period of time. It'll just keep growing in the soil. So that can be a good way to grow them. Definitely not in trays, but as I say, these egg trays are quite good just now for chitting them, bringing them on a bit in a cool, dark room in order to then have a faster growing crop later on. I think that is me. As you can see, I'm in a greenhouse here. Some people don't have the luxury of having a greenhouse, which is totally understandable. You can get something like a grow house like this. So this little grow house here is not too big. It's about 5 foot high, about 4 feet wide, and we zip up the front. So you zip it open or closed through the night, open in the morning. Let the sun get into it, it heats it up. It's a little warm environment for the seedlings, a little bit warmer than the surroundings. It's not going to obviously say frost free. If it does get frosty, it'll get cold, but a little bit warmer. And it also has shelves in it, so you can grow multiple different things in there, pots or seeds or whatever it might be, in a smaller space, a patio, or even on a window, a balcony or something like that. Some people I've seen with them on balconies, so it's a really good way to do it. So those are my recommendations. Certainly not, as I said before, the law. You can do everything however you like. It's a good idea to try things and see what works for you. I think there's a fun to be had in that. So if you've got any suggestions, feel free to drop them below, or any questions, come in and ask a member of staff. There's plenty more qualified than myself. They just don't want to go on camera. So I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.